yes, before we start to look into this topic, let's warm up with some questions. So please raise your hand if you remember more than 2 passwords. Yes, good. And raise your hand if have you used a password more than once. So the same password in multiple, yes, I can see that. And raise your hand if you have written your passwords in sticky notes, Post-its. No? Okay, one. That's great. Don't worry, if you haven't raised your hand, I have more questions. Raise your hand if you have signed up in a site that has suffered a data breach. You know when someone leaks your data and it is in the news, right? And raise your hand if you have tried to recover your password and then you received your actual password, like what you wrote in your email, okay? And finally, raise your hand if you have ever used a site that asks for security questions, like the name of your mom, your last car, raise. If you haven't raised your hand, you're very lucky because these things, you can't really control yourself, right? If you have raised your hand, it's okay. I have been there. Everyone has been there. But by the end of this talk, you should grasp how the industry is addressing this flow from the previous questions. So yeah, I'm not going to introduce myself again, but yeah, Guillermo Rodas. You can find me, Google my name. That's the easiest way. Usually in the socials as Rodas Dev. But the agenda is going to be pretty simple. So first we are going to check what is the problem with passwords, because yes, it's a real problem. Then we are going to explore what is web authentication. Next of that, we are going to check what is passkeys, how can integrate it. And finally, if there is no way to integrate it, how can we develop secure alternatives? So what is the problem with passwords? And probably you're not aware, but passwords are the root cause over the 80% of data breach. And usually this means that we use weak passwords, or we keep the passwords insecure, in sticky notes, And also, a user has, on average, more than 90 online accounts. This is just from, the FIDO Alliance website, but probably this number has been the triple in the last years. I have probably 400 or more accounts. I don't really know, to be honest. And basically, it means that we have opened different ways to hackers to get the access to our accounts, because you have 90 different ways. And another thing that maybe you don't know is the average help desk labor cost for a single password reset is about $70. It means when you have to call on a website and ask for, please reset my password, I forget it. And that means that people are really bad at remembering their passwords. So I'm very amazed for those that remember more than 2 passwords from before. And also passwords cost a lot of money, right? And the last one that is the most sad is up to 51% of passwords are reused. It means that we have used this password in multiple sites, and the problem is you get hacked or a data breach of something from one site, then you got, they got your Instagram password, then your email probably because it's the same, and eventually probably your bank account. So passwords, we are so used to that, but they are such a huge problem that we launched a Open Industry Association in February 2013 to fix them. And yes, this is 10 years ago that we are fighting against passwords. And this alliance is called FIDO. Probably, are you familiar with who knows FIDO by chance? Yes, one guy. That's good. So FIDO Alliance they have this mission of developing and promoting authentication standards that help to reduce these wars over reliance on passwords. It's really cool because it's not random guys. It's the W3C with the participation of companies like Google, Mozilla, Firefox, Yubico, etc. That wrote this standard that is called the Web Authentication API. And this specification is also known as Web Authn. That's just the short name. But okay, so passwords are bad. They developed this industry to combat passwords and develop the Web Authentication API. And what is this, right? What is the Web Authentication API? So this is just like a standard that was like launched in March 2013, and it's it's a standard for password-free login. It means no password at all, right? And it basically uses a set of other standards that support something that is called public key cryptography and multi-factor authentication. And yeah, probably right now you are very confused. What is this public key cryptography and multi-factor authentication? But don't worry, we are going to check it in a minute. And let's check first how WebAuthn addresses like different authentication use cases using password authentications, right? No password at all. Second factor authentication and multi-factor authentication. So how does WebAuthn enables passwordless authentication? And first, I want to know, someone has heard about public key cryptography by chance? Or yes? Okay, a few, that's good, right? So just let's review real quick what is this. So normally you have what is called private key encryption, or it's also called like one key encryption or shared key. And let's imagine that you want to share a secret with a friend, right? And you don't want somebody else to read that secret. So you will use like what we call a shared key. So you have your test, and then you use your key to encrypt that test so no one can really read it, unless someone has the same key and decrypt it, right? And this is good. Like a lot of like technology use like this method is used in the database. Like when you want to encrypt your file system, or even when you want to do database encryption, that's how it works. The only caveat with this is you need to share the key, right? So you need to really trust your friend. And what happens if this friend lost the key or you lost the key, right? Everyone can just encrypt and decrypt that. So that's the only problem. Like you need to do this in a very secure space. What you can do instead is use what we know as public key encryption, right? And so instead of use one shared key, this time you have two keys. And this is very helpful because then you can now share secrets with other people that even you don't really trust. You just want to make sure no one's read the message, only those that you want to provide with the key. So it really depends the case. Like public key encryption can be used for encrypt or for create signatures. We will take a look into a minute. But basically, what you can do is you can provide this public key with those sources that you don't trust anyone. Like I can just give you my public key. And a good example is like communications, like WhatsApp or Telegram. So those conversations are encrypted. And basically, if I want to have a conversation with you, what is going to happen is, okay, if I want to write a message to you, I need your public key, right? Because as the name suggests, public key is public. Anyone can have it. It's not a problem at all. But the private key you never share. So if I want to write a message to you, you will give me your public key. And using your public key, I can write the message, and it's going to be encrypted, right? But only you that have the private key can read it. And in the same way, if you want to write a message to me, I will give you my public key. Then you can use my public key to write a message to me. But only me that has the private key can decrypt that message. So this is very powerful, and a lot of standards work with this methodology. And usually, in the real world, it's not like we use public key encryption for everything, or it's more secure. We usually use this to establish a connection, but eventually for performance, we use private key encryption as we know that the connection is totally secure, right? So let's check how the flow with WebAuthn works. Let's say I want to, register a new account. So remember, we don't want passwords. This is really bad. We just saw the statistics, right? So what is going to happen is okay, you're the user, and you say to the browser or to the website, yes, I want to create an account. So, okay, sure, send me your public key. We know it's fine to share the public key. So then I create a pair of keys, like the public key and the private key, right? We can create as many keys as we want. So the idea is to create a pair per website. So then I create those, I keep the private key, and then I send you the public key. And that's it. Now I'm registered, right? This is a very simple overview because we can get into more details later. So if I'm registered now, because you know about my public key, how can I then authenticate? Well, it's pretty simple. You need to like show me that are you, right? This is authentication. You need to like authenticate you. So simple, you want to sign in. So me as a browser, I will send you some documents, right? And I will ask you, please sign this data, right? So what you are going to do is you are going to use the private key in this case. Remember I mentioned like it depends. If it's encryption or signature, it changes like the way that we use the keys. But the concept is the same. Private key, you keep it safe. Public key is fine to share. So I'm going to create a signature with my private key. And I will going to send you that like that data with the signature. And because you have my public key, the only way that I can make sure the signature is correct is it was signed with the specific private key. But I have the public key to check that signature. So, okay, that's your signature. You are definitely you. So, yes, that's it. So it's a pretty simple concept, and it's more secure than passwords because you don't want to share passwords, right? But you can definitely share your public key. So how does WebAuthn is used for two-factor and multi-factor authentication? And who knows about the authentication factors? Great, few people. So there are like three common types of authentication factors, and this is very interesting how it's called like something you know, usually it's like passwords, your passwords or answer to a specific question. The second type is something you have, and this is such a security key. Maybe have you seen like this like specific security keys or a token? Like it can be a physical token, those for the banks that generate like a number every minute, or even an app that generates like the number every minute, like Google Authenticator, maybe you are familiar with. And the third type is something you are. So this is like a unique biometric. It can be your face, it can be your fingerprint, or even a specific behavioral characteristic as your voice. So usually how it works is like WebAuthn, when it wants to use like two-factor authentication, use like the letters or multi-factor, use the letters too. Usually use something you have and something you are, because something you know, passwords, we know, that's not a really good idea. And again, what is like the difference between like the different like factors? Like the single factor is just one authentication factor. It's usually like passwords most of the time. But then when we talk about two-factor authentication, it's usually like you need two types of authentication factors. Sometimes it's the password and something you have, like the token is kind of the most common, or you get a SMS or something, right? And finally, multi-factor is at least two of those, right? So it's not like, it can be two, right? But it can be 3, 4, 5, as much as you want. So WebAuthn as a two-factor authentication is usually the combination of something you know, because that's how we have like, authenticate these days using the password plus something you have. So usually a security key or token. That's quite common. And as a multi-factor, it's usually something you have plus something you are. So it's like using a security key or a token plus the biometrical ID. It can be, like your face or your fingerprint. And remember, this is quite complicated, but all two-factor is multi-factor, but not all multi-factor is two-factor, okay? So now what are passkeys? Because we just check like WebAuthn. It's a series of like standards specifications that make this possible, so we can use multi-factor and two-factor with the size, etc. So what is passkeys? So passkeys is just WebAuthn with vitamins, right? And this is the most like important part, because passkeys replace the passwords and the multi-factor altogether. Who is not tired of put your password and then put this number, like this code that is generated like every time? Like probably they will remember for a few days or months even, but some sites you need to put it again and again, right? It's very tiring, right? So this is a very complicated like the diagram. This is like for the specification standard, but basically the most important part happens here, like right here. What is happening is like when you do this transaction of public key, the one that we saw before, when you have for some reason do the signature, right? Like use the private key. In order to use your private key, you need to use some sort of like biometrical identification, right? There's something you are. So it's not just like something you have like the private key, right? But it's also something you are. So that's like the very specific part, right? When you want to use your private key, then you need to like use your biometrical like identification. It can be anything that unlocks your phone screen. So yeah, basically when you create a passkey, you are creating a public and private key, right? And in order to use this private key, you need to use your biometric ID. And passkeys are very simpler, right? It's very simple because they have a few things that will help you to have a better experience. First, like they have a count selector. If you go to a site, you don't really need like to like remember what was your username. Like passkeys can recognize what are like your passkeys for this specific site. It also, as we saw, used by biometric authentication that is very secure. It's one of the more secure like authentication factors. And also, and this is also the most important part, because as I say, passkeys is just implementation of web authentication. Web authentication exists from before. You need something you have. You need like use like a special key most of the time, or special token. But the problem with that is like your private and public key lives in the device, right? You have your key. You need to have it everywhere you go. But with passkeys, you have seamless device switch. So it means that if I use my laptop to create a passkey to a website, I can then later use my phone. So the passkeys are shared. And this is because it's shared through the Google Password Manager in the case of Google, or iCloud keychain. I will see that in a second. Also, because passkeys, as I say, as without them, they use public key cryptography. We just saw it's safe to share the public key. It's also phishing resistant. Who knows what are phishing attacks, by the way? Oh, that's good. A lot of you know. So why passkeys are phishing resistant? Right, because the passkeys only works with the site that were registered. They have into account the domain. And I guess you have experience like this with password managers. Usually, if there is like a fake site, the password manager is not going to pull like your data into the fake site because it has a different domain, it doesn't match, right? So passkeys by default, they have into account like this address. So this is like a quick demo of, it's very quick when I show you, but it's a demo how we can create like a passkey in a passwordless login. So as soon as we go into the site, because it's using like the passkeys, it's going to detect, we have a device that is capable of having passkeys. So what it's going to show is like, okay, you want to create a passkeys, and probably you have like an account with Google, so yes. So here, in order like to create the passkeys, you need to use your biometrical identification. So it's protected by the device technology biometrics. And then, boom, it's just like created. Like it will send like the public key. You need, of course, to have some backend integration. We will see a few details in a minute. But what about if I want to sign it with a passkeys through a for autofill? So remember that I told you, like, you don't really need to put your username. So if the site has, let's say, the classic like signing for, because yeah, probably not everyone is moving to passkeys. As soon as you get into the username, you will be prompt with your passkeys immediately. You don't really need to remember. And then you just put the biometric. It will do the whole signature process, and then you have logged in. So the experience is pretty simple. It's very easy to use. Okay, so how can we integrate passkeys, right? Of course, it depends of a lot of technologies, but the good news is like we are basically there. So from Mac, you need to have a Mac OS Ventura or Superior, and also iOS 16 with Superior with iCloud keychain. Android 9 Plus, because it's when it was implementing the Google Password Manager, and Windows 10 Plus, that includes Windows Hello, because not all machines support Windows Hello, because as you can notice, in order to have this, you need to have a cryptographic chip, right? Only specific like laptops that have like cryptographic chips can have like Windows Hello in this case. The browser support is Chrome 108. Probably the last version is a bigger number than that, but I want to show it has been supported for a while. The same with Edge, because use Chrome. And Safari 16, the last version is 17. Firefox, I know, it's the end of the year, basically. They said this year, let's see if they will manage to have it. Maybe this is Christmas present, and we will have passkeys in in Firefox. Okay, so yes, so you need like this device, but these devices are quite common, right? They're basically there, like it's like modern, like browsers and device. And I want to show you a little bit of code. This is not going to be too much because it's. But I just want to show you a few very important parts because this is like a web standard. This is very easy to implement. Like you can see that this comes directly for the navigator, that credentials, and when you want like to like create a passkeys, you need to specify a few things. Specifically in line like 3, it's important that you are going to have a challenge, right? And this comes from the backend. A challenge is just like a random string. It comes like a shared buffer array. I have a QR code, so you prepare your cell phones when you can see like a full example with the backend. You want questions specific to that. And then in the line 4, you can see like the relying party. So this is basically the domain where the passkeys is going to be created. This is also very important because this is how we like avoid the phishing attacks. And then the user, you need also a unique ID. This can be the ID that you use in your database. That's totally okay. The name is the username. Probably, I don't know, they put a name. You want a display name. That's how it's called, display name, when you can use like, your full name. And then there are other 2 important parts, like you need to put authentication attachment platform in order to the platform to show up the passkeys. Because if you don't put platform, probably it's going to ask you for a security key. Because remember, this is based on WebAuthn, right? If you have implemented WebAuthn in your websites, like go to passkeys is just like a few steps, to implement it. And finally, required resident key true is in order to remember that your passkeys is there. So it's going to like put some information to remember, like in this website you have your passkeys, and it's going to prompt you with the, with the information, and the user can like choose the account in this case. And then if we want use to authenticate with the passkeys, it's a similar API, navigator, that credentials, that get, and then the same with path challenges. And this is like the thing that is going to, to sign. And then the relying party again. And finally, mediation conditional is in order to see this UI. So the nice, interesting part about like passkeys is you don't need to like create a form with a selector of the passkeys. You don't really need that. Like the platform already supported. That's why you need like specific browsers. So basically, when you put mediation conditional, it will show like this UI when you can choose the passkeys, and then it's going to ask for your fingerprint or your face ID, etc. If you want implement like the very basics like this, remember when we saw in the demo that you can click in the username and immediately you will prompt you with the passkeys. It's important that in your user input, you put autocomplete username WebAuthn. When you put that, it's going to like try to check, okay, there is passkeys there, and I will just show you like the UI. If you want to learn how to do like this first part, there is like a nice demo, like a workshop. It's like half an hour workshop. You can find that in the short URL of Google, passkeys-workshop, or of course scan the QR. You can see how you can implement like an autofill web app with passkeys. But if we are very curious about like the backend part, right? What you can do is you can scan this other QR code, and there is a passkeys demo on GitHub, right? This is like the URL. You go to Google Chrome Labs, passkeys-demo, and basically there you can see the whole implementation, not just the front end that is quite simple, but also the backend, because in order to the backend, you need to provide the challenge, you need to like receive the public key, and please never handle the public key yourselves. There are like libraries that will do that for you. There is like specific like standard libraries. You can of course implement it, but you need to follow by a FIDO spec that is quite hard to follow, and of course we want everything to be secure. So please use like the libraries that are like suggested there. There are libraries in the different languages, and you can see like the whole flow, because yeah, unfortunately it's not as simple as just do front end. This requires a backend that is going to receive this. Yes. So yeah, passkeys are pretty cool. But what if I use Firefox? My users use Firefox for some reason. They can use like Chrome right now. or I have a really old laptop, right? And there is a very good news here, because we saw that passkeys are like seamless in between devices, like we can share. If you don't have a laptop that has some sort of biometrical way to confirm that it's you always can use your phone, right? I unfortunately don't have my Android here, but you can test it. Like you just go into a website in your old laptop, and it will prompt you with use your phone, right? And you can use your phone, and it will, the next time that you try to log in, it will recognize that you create this password with your Android phone, and will ask you for that. I didn't bring my Android because that specific demo, for some reason, always fails on demos, but never when I try myself. But we will check a few demos. So, okay, what other secure alternatives we have? And it's important as a user, if you don't pretend to use passkeys, please use a password manager, right? You know, password manager, they generate strong passwords, right? No, the silly things that can be very easy to predict. It auto-fills the passwords for the right side, and also synchronize the passwords across devices. No more share your password in sticky notes or in a message that can be insecure. And also, this is very cool. Like password managers can notify when a password is vulnerable, because maybe there is a data breach, right? And maybe it's time to change your password. But if you have used the password manager correctly and generate like unique passwords for websites, it's okay, because it's only that password that is very random, and it's totally fine, right? And then password manager will do that for you. You don't really need to think about. You should don't know your passwords, to be honest. But as a developer and as a user, of course, it's important to encourage like two-factor and multi-factor authentication, because yes, something maybe it's pretty easy to guess, pretty easy to get, but maybe something you have is harder, right? Or something you are is more harder. So, usually this is known as OTP, like one-time password. I guess we are quite familiar with this. We have the Authenticator app as Google Authenticator. There are others there. Also email, usually you get your email with the unique code. Or CMS. CMS is the less secure because it still handles like plain text, like it's not encrypted, while the others, yes, they will be. So yeah, please use password managers and enable two-factor and multi-factor. For those important accounts, right, or the accounts that allow it, because unfortunately not all of the websites of accounts provide these methodologies. So yeah, so what have we learned? So, passwords, as we saw at the beginning, cause a lot of issues. We just have this association from 10 years ago. WebAuthn is the web authentication standard. Passkeys will replace the passwords and multi-factor altogether. And we can integrate passkeys today on almost all modern environments. You can use, of course, if you can't for some reason, please use password managers and two-factor and multi-factor authentication. I guess I have time for a quick demo, right? Let's see. Words is not that amazing because I'm not going to go directly into my account, but at least. By the way, I just realized there is another nice website. You can put WebAuthn, I remember the N.me. And this is very interesting because you can check the whole flow. The problem is this is very dark, so I'm not going to do it right here because yeah, it's very hard to see. But basically, we'll show you how the authenticator communicates with the relying party, and then you will touch the fingerprint, etc. You can use this in your mobile as well. But the quick demo that that we're going to do here, and let me see, because I already created multiple passkeys here, and I use 1Password. It's a really nice password managers. I know there are other alternatives there. I usually don't recommend LastPass. LastPass has a lot of data breaches, so I don't really recommend it. So he will ask me for unlock my 1Password in order to log in, but I don't want to do that. I want to register a new let's put something Lisbon, right? And then let's do register, and it's going to prompt again 1Password because that's my password manager. But I'm just going to ignore that, and I'm going to let the 1Password know that I want to use my default. This is kind of the default prompt. So because I'm using a Mac, you can see the iCloud keychain here. If I were using my main Google account, I can check another option that will be use my Android phone. Or also, you can have like use a phone, a tablet. You have like different ways, or even a security key. So I can use like iCloud keychain. So this is like the Mac, solution here. So I'm just going to put my fingerprint, and it's done. And it creates like the passkeys. That's done. So when I go into authenticate, let's say I want to authenticate. So because of course it's the same, but look, if I click here immediately, he already knows that I use like iCloud. And this is pretty cool because you use Android or your phone, it will immediately like prompt you. You won't see the 1Password little thing because maybe you don't have it. In my case, I use my passkeys with 1Password, but I just want to show you something different from 1Password, and that's it. And that's simple. And if I go to website, into my iPhone, he already knows that I have my passkey. We're going to like share that information. So yeah, you of course you can try. And also, today, you can use in your like official like Google account or even your iCloud account, you can allow passkeys today. If you have a GitHub account, you also can allow passkeys today. Passkeys doesn't mean you need to like resign to passwords. You have your password, but also have passkeys an alternative. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. We have 6 minutes for questions. Or 10.
That's fine.
No, we just want to give you more time to enjoy the networking in the common area. So, any questions?
Yes, there is one.
So, first of all, thank you for the very nice presentation. So I was always kind of like against using password managers,
right?
But I know it was only how should I say this? Me not having enough knowledge made me not use password managers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I always hear about the data breaches and so on. So how can I, and without doing a lot of research, how can I choose a provider for?
Right. So I will say that it depends on your device, right? If you have like a Apple ecosystem, like you can rely on iCloud kitchen, right? Because it's quite secure. When I have like this question a lot, like what happened with the biometry if someone steals my embeddings, and the thing is like this is like another problem, right? Like when you like do your fingerprint, this is a technology and information that stays in the machine, right? This is not something that it travels during the way. So what travels is the private key, and of course is through their like password like manager, platform. So if someone for some reason breaks iCloud, like we have a bigger problem, right? But I mean, if you don't. I really like 1Password because the experience is really good. It works for every device, not just like Apple. It works with Android. And it's cheap these days because it used to be very expensive, but it's not that cheap. Even, password is such a problem. And in my case, I pay like the family plan. So I have like all my family with 1Password, and we share like the Netflix, password through 1Password or whatever. Because we are maybe tech savvy, but maybe our family, but our parents aren't. So it's good like to empower like with the password manager. So I personally like 1Password, but you can rely in the platform like iCloud or Google Password Manager. That will be fine. The only problem is like for me, at least I want to have everything in one place. So that's why I use also 1Password for my passkeys.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? There is one. Yeah.
Hi. How is currently the current status of passkeys for native applications? And it's easy to implement them. You showed a web strategy, but we can also find something for native.
Right. So that's a really good question, and I don't really know the answer. I know for Android, at least, yes, there is support for that because it comes with the whole Google Password Manager. The only problem for Android is you need Android 9 Plus. And people is why no all Androids? It's because Google Password Manager only existed after Android 9. I don't really know with Apple, but I guess also they have it because they support iCloud keychain also. They should have it. But other than that, yes, that's kind of my knowledge regarding that. I guess they will have SDKs, but yeah, I only do web by now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.